My name is Shantell Martin, and I'm the host of What's the Point? This is a conversation series dedicated to exploring why artists create art and the forces that influence us. Join me as I sit down with artists and friends to talk about their reasons for doing what they do and why they continue to create. Very happy to have today's guest here. Huge fan of her work, and I've loved seeing it in so many different mediums and in different spaces. So Jen Stark is a Miami-born, LA-based artist known for her bright, psychedelic designs which are inspired by the natural world. Using materials such as wood, paint, paper, and metal, her sculptural work can be seen as an optical illusion, and she's even been expanding her work into the digital realm over the last few years. I feel very lucky to have her here today and so excited for this conversation. Jen, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sparing the time. I know you're super busy.
Of course. Anything for you.
Well, I appreciate that.
I was excited.
I appreciate that. I started this series because I wanted to speak to other artists about why they make art and who they feel it's for. And sometimes I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when I feel like that, I always know this, that when I speak to other artists, I just feel better, because I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. So in a way, this is an endeavor to understand that existential crisis of why we even do this. Why do we do this to ourselves? And so I'd love to start by knowing a little bit more about what was your first introduction to art, either kind of seeing it or experiencing it or even making it yourself.
Yeah. The first introduction to art was when I was really small. My grandpa, growing up in Miami, he was a hobby artist, so he would draw and paint scenes of sailboats and water birds and just like very Miami scenes. So growing up, he saw that I had, that I loved creating art. I would just draw everywhere and cut up paper and collage and do all that fun stuff from like a very young age, maybe 2 or 3. So he invited me to his house to have like little art sessions and lessons, and he would teach me how to watercolor paint. So he kind of brought it out of me, and luckily I had really supportive parents that even though they weren't creative themselves, I think that the artist gene kind of skipped. Yeah. My mom loves plants, and my dad was kind of more like Army Green Beret Ranger type. So that definitely skipped them. But yeah, they kind of helped harness that in me and just pushed the creativity. So
I think grandparents are so special because they have a craft. Typically most grandparents know how to make something or fix something or stitch something. The sailboats and everything that he was painting, were they like super realistic?
I would say not photorealistic, but realistic enough to have like a little personality to it.
Yeah. And what happened to his work?
His work, there's still some paintings at, my mom's house, my aunt's house. It's kind of like spread through the family.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the watercolor stuff that you did when you were younger, is any of that still existing or around?
Yeah, luckily my parents saved a bunch. I have one of the first watercolors that I did, and I kind of like to say this was my like aha moment when I was probably 5 or 6. My grandpa and I were painting a still life of my Cabbage Patch doll, and I was painting it, and it actually looked kind of good. And he's like, "Yours looks better than mine," and I'm like, oh, "What? Maybe I can be an artist." And I just had this like funny moment where something I was painting looked cool, and my grandpa was like, "Wow, that looks really great." So that was the Cabbage Patch doll moment.
I love that you remember that movie. There was a Cabbage Patch doll movie.
No, I don't.
Okay, you might have to put that on your list.
I do,
sometime.
yeah.
It's interesting because I remember the first time when I was a kid and I drew my dog and it actually looked like the dog, and I was like, "Oh wow, I can bring things in reality that exist onto paper."
Yeah,
it kind of like blows your mind.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. Art is amazing. It's like creating magic sometimes.
And then what was your school like? Because, when I look at your work, not to kind of jump around or ahead of myself, but it's very mathematical in a way. There's engineering. It feels like it's almost like codes to fly a mothership or something.
Cool.
And so within your school system, were you into math or science or other disciplines?
Yeah, I was always just fascinated by math and science, although I wouldn't say I was the best student, but I tried.
Yeah.
So I loved the idea of math and the math in nature. Like I could visualize it and see these Fibonacci codes and sacred geometry in ferns and stuff like that, even though that kind of stuff isn't even greatly researched yet, like how it's connected to the universe. And yeah, I'm getting beyond myself right now. But yeah, growing up in school, I definitely loved math and science, and I had some really great art programs in public school in Miami, where it was like a magnet school program where you had to try out and show that you were interested in art, and they would kind of take you from elementary school to middle school to high school and then to college, which was really awesome.
And what were you like in the school playground? What type of kid were you?
I was really shy, actually. Very shy until maybe like middle school or high school. I kind of was very introverted, and I had a little bit of a lisp that I would have to go to like speech therapy. They would pull me out of class to try to get rid of it. So I think I got rid of it. And there might be a little bit left. But yeah, I was very very shy. And it's funny, my parents, they're, every parent thinks their kid is smart, but they're like, you should try out for the gifted program. We had these like advanced programs in elementary school. And I tried out for it. You're like one-on-one with a professor, and they're like doing all these, funny tests. And they're like, it ended, and they went back to my parents, and they're like, she passed, but she's just too shy. Like she needs to talk more and be more social. So my parents, they kind of like were like, bringing it out of me. So yeah, pretty shy.
But gifted.
Yeah, I guess so. Whatever that means.
But that's interesting because it's, in a way that's equating social skills with like intelligence, and saying, well, you can be intelligent, but if you don't have the social skills, or if you're shy, we're not really going to work with you to kind of extract that out of you. Yeah,
they kind of thought I was going to get just run over by the loudmouth gifted kids.
Yeah.
So they're like, she needs to talk more and just, get out there.
And do you think, in a way, at that time, art helped get that shyness out, or helped you connect with, more of the outside world if you weren't kind of an extrovert as a kid?
Yeah, it definitely helped with my confidence, I think, and connecting with people, being able to spark up a conversation because of art.
Yeah. And, I think a thing that I really enjoy now, being an artist that's worked for a whole bunch of years, is that you have the power of reflection. You can look back at the last year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, and you can see all this work that you've been making. When you look back, are there any common themes, questions, subjects, contents that have come up consistently since you were little?
Yeah, definitely color. I love color queen. So that was definitely a reoccurring theme. Also the theme of accumulation, just like a lot of, with my earlier paper sculptures, it's just like repetition and the same thing kind of over and over, almost in an obsessive way. So I could see that being a theme early on. And nature, just like emulating like plant growth in an abstract way, and math. So
I remember seeing some of your work years and years ago in a gallery in New York. I think it was in the Lower East Side. It was a paper sculpture. And it just blew my mind, because I'm firstly like, how does someone have the patience to make something like that? But then also it comes back to that part of the brain where your brain had to see that before you made that and then work through all those steps in the process to get there.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do that.
Cool. Thanks.
That's, it's just like, phew.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I didn't even know how I was doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew I loved paper. And at that time, like in the end of college, when I figured that signature style out, I loved paper and the idea that it was this 2-dimensional material that you're turning into this like 3-dimensional, mind-blowing object. So I love that idea of transformation. And yeah, I kind of just created a sketch for it, and I'm like, okay, I think this is how it's gonna go. And a lot of those designs were based off of evolution in kind of an abstract way, where you take one design, one layer, one generation, and that affects the next one and the next one, and it kind of keeps evolving and morphing. And yeah, those sculptures were all hand done with an X-Acto knife. They looked like these crazy geodes. And yeah, luckily when I was doing that the most, it was during the time of blogs, like 2007, and those were becoming viral. So everybody was really thirsty for like beautiful art images, and I think my artwork kind of just took off from there, which was awesome.
Yeah, because it also translates really nicely in photography. So physically they're amazing, but in photography it looks incredible too, because you're like, what is that? There's like 1,000 layers of paper.
Yeah, and this is before AI and AR.
Yeah,
it was handmade.
All those things. And were you making those by yourself?
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I could have even teach someone how to make that. They're just, I had to do them myself. Although I did have assistants help me make them 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
So we would cut little pieces of foam core and glue them all together. But the actual cutting of the artwork was all me.
Yeah. And do you think much about the preservation of your work?
I do now. Back then I was using paper. It was very high quality and archival, and I would spray like a UV varnish on it. But yeah, now more and more I try to think of it living longer, and I try to use metal and wood and just more archival things, UV protection.
And the paper sculptures that you made back then, are they still alive and kicking in good condition, everything? Yeah,
some of them are, people still have them displayed. Usually if they wanted to keep them a long time, they would put like a plexi glass box over it, and those are fine. So yeah, they've lasted.
Nice. No, beautiful. And for me, someone that doesn't use as much color, there's not an absence of color. I like to say there's color there, but the people bring it within their imagination. So, they have to imagine the color.
I like that.
With your work, we don't have to imagine the color. You're helping us out. There's a red carpet of like, walk this red carpet to all the color. Where's that fascination of color come from?
Probably from nature. Again, just the idea of color in nature, where you have this red berry that's, tempting you to come eat it, or this poison dart frog that has these like crazy technicolor colors, and it's like warning you away. So that push and pull of like attraction and repelling. And I love how nature uses colors. I love colors in light and in crystals, just like the color spectrum and how colors mix together. So
in a way, you probably see color perhaps more vividly than most people, perhaps?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe. I've taken that test before, that like silly online test that tells you how many colors you see.
Oh, I haven't done that.
I'm definitely not above average or anything, but I just love color.
And in some of your waterfalls, you have an abundance of color, but then you do have these moments of black and white, that juxtaposition.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
That's a good question. I love mixing all the colors together and having contrasting shapes, and I love how black and white kind of makes your eyes vibrate, and it's this like static, even though it's just static images. I've created these sculptures where it's just like black and white and you walk up to it and it's like vibrating. So yeah, I love just mixing that with the whole rainbow and kind of letting them play off of each other.
Yeah. And you're from Miami, but it does feel very much like LA is your home. You know, I moved to LA and I'm living in Culver City, and you know, there's a Jen Stark mural at Platform across the road from me.
Yeah.
And then the building I'm living in, there's the HBO offices across the road, and I can see in there. And then I got to see one of your murals inside there. So in a way, I was sandwiched by these Jen Stark murals. And, you know, it's so nice being in a city like this and seeing your work at an incredibly large scale or different scales around the town. Can you tell me a little bit about when you came to LA and, you know, how LA's been for you and what that journey's been like?
Yeah, I came to LA in 2012. So I've been here like 12 years,
Wow.
which is wild. And moved from Miami. So I was in Miami, went to college in Baltimore, kind of pretty much moved back to Miami. And then I'm like, okay, a bunch of artist friends were like, let's get out of Miami. Let's do something really amazing. So a handful of us moved to Los Angeles in 2012. And that was awesome. It was, I think, a really good career move, just like creativity. I met a lot of people here. And yeah, I feel very rooted here. It's awesome.
I love that you moved as a crew.
Yeah.
I should do that. I'm such a like lone wolf. Like I'm just like, I'm moving to a city or a different country and then you have to start all again. But
yeah,
with like a group of people that are like, yeah, let's go. Are you still in touch with some of those folks?
Yeah, definitely. I moved with Friends With You, the art collective.
Yeah.
And Alvaro Elizarbe, awesome artist. Eva Seta, who she does communications at the Broad Museum. So we're all still in the arts and yeah, doing our thing in LA.
Nice. And you're going to stick around LA for a while?
I think so. I toy with the idea of like living in New York for a little bit, but my roots are so deep here that I don't know.
Yeah. I did 15 years in New York and, you know, moving to LA, it's been a really hard transition because you understand, you know, for me, I understand how New York works. You know, everything comes to you and it is easy in a way because you understand that process. And I was talking to someone last night and they're like, Shantell, in LA, you have to go to the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand that. You know, I don't understand that I need to wake up early and go to the mountains if I want to do that.
Yeah.
Or I have to go up and like wake up early and go see this show, you know, versus like you bump into someone and they're like, come here and come there and do this and do that. And you don't really have to think much because, you know, New York, it's telling you what to do. Whereas in LA, you have to be very intentional about your time and what you do here and where you go and what you do with that day.
That's very true. Yeah.
So is there anything uniquely in LA that you love to do kind of out in the world?
What do I love to do here? All sorts of things. I love how LA has such a variety. You have, you know, kind of the city. It's not like New York, but you have amazing food, like such a great variety of food here. You have the desert, the forest, like an hour or two away, the ocean. So yeah, I love exploring. I love camping. It's kind of the perfect temperature to go camping. And
you sleep outside when you're camping?
In a tent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I've never slept outside. I'm such a city kid, so it's, you know, it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, it's fun.
So for people who aren't that familiar with your work or what you've been doing recently, how would you describe your work or your practice?
Yeah, it's funny because it's evolved so much over time. I was such an like a handmade, just like labor intensive artist, and now I do all sorts of stuff like brand collabs. I just did a whole couple seasons with Skechers shoes. I do murals, digital art, NFTs. I'm like gearing up to do an immersive experience. It's actually close to here where we're filming this. It's a couple blocks away. So it'll be called Cascade. And I actually opened it in New York a couple years ago. And this one's going to be even bigger, just scaled up, where it's an experience of multiple rooms where you can walk in and you can touch the projections and things change. And it's almost like you're playing musical instruments, but they're digital. And just have my hands in all the cookie jars now. I love it. It's fun.
Because it's interesting because in a way you could have kept doing the paper sculpture and that would have been your career for the next 30 years or 40 years or until, till ever you wanted to retire or stop. But in a way, it's not really about that as a medium. It's about the idea. And you can see that your idea has transcended those different mediums and industries.
Cool.
And
thank you.
Has gone from, very, like you said, tactile, fine art, sculptural, to then a brand, but then to a show, and then interactive, but then digital. And it still has that underlying fingerprint and identity of you. Do you ever get any support or criticism or people saying, hey, if you do all these different things, then you're not doing this? Or, I know that's kind of a very general question, but what's the response been for the different types of mediums and industries that you've been playing in?
Yeah. Early on, I was really in like the fine art world and just concentrating on that. And then as time went by, I'm like, this is kind of boring to like play by these rules and just do exactly what they say they think you should do.
What are some of those rules?
Like, don't do commercial work or work with brands or even like murals because you're considered a street artist and that's bad. And just like, they're like a little scared of branching out. And I kind of just go with my gut with my art in my career. And if it feels like a good fit and it feels right, I go for it. But early on I was more fine artist gallery, and now I'm like, people are entering spaces where they can like touch my art and interact with it, and it's a lot more exciting.
Yeah. And how's it been with the brand work? Has that been challenging? Do you get to have your own vision with the projects? Are there kind of, marketing people saying, hey, like, we want you to do this and not this? What's that experience been like creatively?
Yeah, it really depends on the brand. Some brands they're just like, do whatever you want. And then some have very specific politics inside of them. Some are such huge companies, it's like, it's just hard to navigate stuff. But I try, if there's rules and restrictions, I try to be like, okay, what's the most important to me? What can I push and pull with? What can I compromise with? But if it's something I feel strongly about, I never compromise on the big stuff. But you have to have a little give and take with the brands because,
And I'm sure you have a lot of inbound. What's your filter for saying yes or no to projects?
Usually my gut. If somebody approaches me and I feel good about it, then it's usually a yes, let's continue the conversation and see what happens. But if I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe that usually means no. And I feel like that the older I get, the more I'm like, that should guide me in all the areas in my life where it's like an enthusiastic yes or, maybe is a no. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always said that. Say yes to yes and no to no. That's it. That's your compass.
Yeah.
And wherever you end up is where you should be, like regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so I came to visit you in your studio maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I forget. Time's moving very fast.
Yeah.
But I think you've moved into your new studio since.
I did.
Okay, where is that? Congratulations.
Thanks. That's in Boyle Heights, and yeah, it's a lot bigger, a lot more room, which is awesome.
Where's Boyle Heights for people like myself that don't know where that is?
Technically like east of LA, but I'm a little bit southeast of LA, so like Olympic and Soto area.
Okay, and tell us about your studio.
It's great. It's this beautiful building with skylights. I have a little loft. I have like, an amazing art making area where it's just like my playground, and I have a kitchen. I can host, dinner parties and stuff. It's fun. It's like an adult playground.
And you got to design it, I think, right?
I did, yeah.
Nice. That must be so rewarding to see something you've kind of made, this space for you to just come in and create and do your own thing, come into fruition.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. When I got it, it was just this metal building. I called it a metal bunker. And I designed the whole thing and renovated it, and yeah, kind of made my dream studio, which is awesome.
Okay, beautiful. I'm looking forward to visiting at some point.
We'll do a pizza party or something.
Okay, nice. And that's where you were doing your live drawing?
Yes.
And so how does that work?
Yeah, I do. We throw these figure drawing parties where it's also like BYOB. So we'll have a model come, and there's usually around like 25 people, artists, non-artists, just people that are interested in drawing the figure. And yeah, it's cool. You meet a lot of different people and kind of brush the rust off of your figure drawing skills.
I went to one of those, I think probably a year and a half ago, and for me it's kind of tough because I start to draw something that exists, and then I just get bored and kind of just run off into a different direction. It reminds me of school a little bit, but it's definitely good practice.
It is. Yeah, it's a good challenge in using your brain in a different way.
And being present in that way.
Mm-hmm.
What's the future look like for you? I know you have Cascade come in. I think in New York it was about 6,000 square feet. It was pretty big.
Wow, good memory. Exactly.
It was pretty big. I was very impressed with that, and the juxtaposition between the different types of immersion in there. So this one's going to be even bigger. It's going to open sometime this year.
Yeah, it'll open later this year in the fall, and it's going to be almost double the size.
Wow.
So about like 12,000 square feet. We have all new rooms that we're creating. We'll have a lounge with like cocktails, and people, will be able to come and have a cocktail and walk through the experience, and it's gonna be lots of fun. I'm excited.
And what does Cascade mean for you as a kind of narrative or a whole for this?
Yeah, Cascade. That title came from one of my pieces called Drip Cascade, and it's kind of my signature style of like the psychedelic dripping designs. And yeah, Cascade is kind of just the waterfall of different ideas and different elements coming together.
Well, I'm excited to check that out. And then I'm guessing there's a lot of programming elements in that. You have a team help you, or what does that setup look like?
Yeah, there's so many moving parts. There's a production team that has to build out, the space and the drywall. There's a tech team that has to create the content and then set up the tech in the space. And over the 3 months, they'll have to, be on site to turn it off and on and tweak it. And there's like people at the ticketing booth. There's people in the gift shop. There's merch to be made. It's insane how many elements there are. A marketing team, ticketing platform. It's crazy.
And I think in the one in New York, there was a really cool merch store there. It was also ticketed. Was there any documentation of the New York one as a whole? Because it's kind of hard to document in the sense that it's a lot of projection work and.
It is, yeah. Yeah, we have a few videos that show the interactivity, and we have a sizzle reel that kind of has the highlights of each one. But yeah, video can only do so much. It's better to go there and experience it. It's really fun.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we put a link to that at some point so people can see it. And then you mentioned earlier that you have a Sketches collaboration that came out recently.
I did, yeah.
how did that come about? What does that line look like? Are you wearing Skechers?
Of course. Gotta rep the Skechers.
Okay, they look pretty awesome.
Thanks. So this is season 2 that just came out, and season 1 dropped last summer, and that was cool because it sold out within like 10 days.
Wow, in the US?
Online.
Okay.
I think that's global. I don't know. On the Skechers website,
Yeah,
they're
so
like,
you can get them pretty much just online, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like Skechers, they'll have the third-party retailers sell them. So they bought all of them up.
Wow.
And then on their website, they launched it and then it sold out, which was really cool. But yeah, this is season 2, and I've been working on this project for like at least 2 years, I think, maybe 3 years. So
yeah,
we'll continually drop a few seasons.
Oh, there's going to be additional seasons?
Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's super fun.
At least 4 seasons, and I'm doing a very special collab with an insane, amazing person in October. So keep a lookout for that.
Okay.
You'll see it.
Okay, nice. We'll see it online in LA, kind of out in the universe.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's somebody that everybody knows and loves. We're doing a little thing together.
All right. Okay, well, I'm excited about that, and everyone will have to wear their Skechers as they come and see that or experience that.
Yes.
So that's good. And I've been thinking a lot just in general and speaking to other artists about this idea of, legacy and inventory and, the art that you make and what you want to do with it when you're not here, or the responsibility of it. And
yeah.
Has that been something that you've ever considered, thought about, would want to think about, have any experience on?
I have. I don't know. I haven't really put anything in motion like that. I don't have kids. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like my artwork will live past me, get like handed down through collections and people's families and stuff, but I haven't really thought about like, I don't know, a Jen Stark foundation or trust just yet. I'm kind of just having fun with it and seeing where it evolves, but I like that you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. We just make art, we make it, and we don't really consider what happens to it. And sometimes that's good because we're not burdened with that sense of having to preserve it or store it or even catalog it. But if we don't, at some point, it's either someone else's job, or depending on what it is, they might see it as a burden, depending on that, to figure out what those next steps are.
Yeah.
And I think, for us as artists, especially as we get older, it could be a good idea just to start thinking about, okay, so we sometimes just assume, well, a museum will take it or it'll just go here. Mm-hmm. But some of those agreements you need to work out beforehand and be like, hey, like, will you take these works or these works will go here? Do you catalog any of your work and have an inventory system so you know kind of what you've made and where it is? And
I do, yeah. I have an artwork. It's literally called artworkarchive.com. It's just a place where you can input all of your artwork, how much it sold for, where it is. I wish you could have, we could start doing this now, but just like a physical tracker thing on the artwork that kind of gets scanned when it goes to a new collection so you can keep track of it, because a lot of it we just don't know.
I've always thought about that, because if my dry cleaning can have little barcodes on that get scanned so the dry cleaner knows where it is and what it is, why can't our art have that?
Yeah, I think it should.
Yeah. It's interesting because I haven't used Artwork Archive. Mm-hmm. But you've been using it for a long time. It's good.
Yeah, it's good for a couple years. It's pretty standard. It's good.
Pretty affordable.
Yeah, I think it's like a couple $100 a year.
Okay.
It's not too bad.
So that's good. And also, when you're making your work at your studio, do you have enough storage there and everything to keep everything?
Yeah, I have a loft that I have a few, extra artworks in. But yeah, luckily I don't have too much inventory,
Yeah.
so that's good.
That's good. That's always makes it a lighter lift.
Mm-hmm.
And has there been any projects that you've wanted to do but you've not able to have completed yet?
Yeah. I would love to do artwork that it's like a public sculpture, but that gives back renewable energy. So that's kind of a big dream, mixing public artwork with either solar panels or wind, or kind of something that it's not just like this awesome public sculpture that's beautiful, cool concept, but it gives back to the community,
Yeah.
either like in a school or in a park, or people can even have them in their gardens or something.
Yeah. I never thought of it like that, but in a way, public artworks are objects that take resources, materials and time and money to be constructed, but they don't give back.
Yeah, I mean, they give back creatively and visually, but
what if, like you're saying, they could give back in more of a substantial way, either like they could grow plants or filter air or
serve a purpose,
reflect something, create some energy.
Mm-hmm.
That could be an interesting way of viewing public art. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's my plan. If any energy companies are out there listening.
Yep. Solar panels, windows, winds, let's create a massive Jen Stark mothership of, geometric shapes and forms and colors.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay, nice. And so you gave me some socks today.
Yeah.
And some bumper stickers. Where can people find, some of these fun objects that you have? You've got a variety of things that people can collect from you. I've seen there's wine out there, there's clothing out there. Where can we find all of these things?
Most of it, my website, jenstark.com. And then to see what I'm up to, like the most recent things I've done, Instagram.
Okay.
At Jen Stark.
And are you keeping all those things up to date yourself?
I do, yeah. I feel like I have like 5 jobs. I'm just like doing things all day, every day. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
As artists, we kind of have to.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
I wake up early. I work out. I do bar, which is kind of like Pilates.
Okay.
And then I go to the studio. I have an assistant, which is awesome. She helps out a lot, just like admin stuff and helping with paintings and being like my second brain. It's really awesome. She's worked with me for 8 years, which is wild.
Wow. How did you find her?
Through Instagram.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I did a post many years ago, and I'm like, I'm looking for interns. And she emailed me, and we just started from there as like an unpaid intern, and now she's my assistant, main assistant, yeah.
Okay, so bar, studio, got a great assistant, and then what's the rest of the day look like after that?
Make art, answer emails, watch the dogs run around and play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then go home and kind of wind down, try to read. But yeah, mostly like, I feel like all moments of my day are, my brain is just trying to think of new ways to do things or new ideas. So it's fun.
And are you reading anything good right now?
I'm reading something called Secure Love right now that this author sent me a book. She's like, do you want to read it? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. I want to learn ways to like make all kinds of relationships stronger and like heal myself. And yeah, I went through a couple breakups in the last year, so I'm reading a lot of kind of like healing, self-helpy stuff, which is cool. It's just like building confidence and all that good stuff.
Have you read anything in that book that's really stuck with you so far?
Of course, I'm not going to be able to think of it. Not really. I think I also read this book called Lighter. I think it's by something Pueblo. He's really awesome, but it's just about like letting go and the art of letting go and just trying to be light and not hold on to feelings that we're feeling, just like acknowledge them and like let them flow through us.
Do you think there's things in life that you're holding on to?
This is turning into a therapy session. I like it. Holding on to. I'm sure there is. I feel like, yeah.
Or what would make you lighter? That's a different way of asking
What
it.
would make me lighter? Not getting triggered by certain conversations, like learning how to like not take other people's ways of conversing personally. Just, yeah. I don't know. Maybe not taking things personally and letting things flow.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, like not getting into cycles of just conversations where it's like negative cycles, kind of realizing when something's negative and like stepping back and being like, okay, I'm getting stuck in this thing. Let me like acknowledge it, acknowledge how I'm feeling, and kind of take a break or move forward.
It's almost like that pause button or that stop button that just allows you to reflect for a second.
Yeah.
Which sounds easy, but in practice, it's not at all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and not letting the pain and like decisions of others affect me, where it's like it's like a reflection of them and their past, and like I'm my own person, and I'm, moving forward in like a confident way that's doesn't have to do with them.
I think that's one of the hardest things, like not to take things personally.
Yeah.
Because we do, it's just like human instinct. It's like you said, there's a berry and it looks yummy and we're attracted to it. And, people say bad things or there's negative spaces or energy around us and we take that personally too. It's very hard to avoid that. And just with much things, it takes practice to build that shield.
Yeah.
And become lighter in that way. And so a couple of breakups in 1 year is obviously a lot to go through. Do you have family, friends? Like, what do you do to kind of heal yourself? You're reading. Anything else that you're doing that's been really helpful?
Friends were like, they came in clutch. They're like texting when it happened, when the big moments happened. I'm good now, but they're like texting me every day and calling me and just checking up on me, and I'm like, wow, friends are so important in life. They're like the thing that just stays true. And reading, self-care, baths, just trying to do things that make me happy and try not to do like destructive things to myself.
Mm-hmm. Like build a really large kind of crazy project by yourself or something like that, or throw yourself into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing with being artists, is that we can try and heal ourselves by throwing ourselves in the deep end with work sometimes. So it can be rewarding and creative, but at the end of the day, sometimes we can get lost in it too.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to know your limits. And I learned that a lot with Cascade show, where when we did it in 2021, it takes a team. I can't do things by myself. It wouldn't work. I would just end up like anxious all the time, and things would just fall apart. So having a team and having good people on your side is important.
But also I think, when you have a team, making sure that vision's aligned. So when you have a team and you're working on such a big project like that, are you able to voice that no when you feel like a no, or a yes when you feel like a yes, to like direct that higher, bigger project? Or is it kind of like, okay, they're working on this, so I just have to go along with it? Like where are you energetically with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I try not to say yes to the things where I don't have much input.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually the projects that I'm doing, I'm like kind of leading the creative, and if I don't feel good about something, the people around me that I chose, they're like, okay, she's not into it, let's switch gears. So
yeah,
it's good.
And so, okay, so this lifetime, you're an artist, you're a creative, you're a director. What do you feel was the point or is the point of everything you've kind of chosen to do in that kind of artscape? So essentially, like, what is the point of art for you and all those things that you've been doing?
Yeah. For me, purpose, joy. I find a lot of joy from like the inspiration my art brings to other people. There's like Jen Stark class lessons that are going around on the internet, and I'm just like,
oh, nice.
I'm just standing on the outside watching, like, what the heck is happening in elementary schools and stuff. There's this whole like Jen Stark artist ecosystem, and they're like drawing drips, and I think I have lessons on some master school websites or something that teachers are pulling from, but that's really awesome, just like seeing the inspiration and in these little kids, and hopefully just planting those seeds in them to help them know that they can do what they want in life. They can, think outside of the box. They don't have to do this like specific job or 9 to 5 or whatever.
So in a way, to inspire, to let other people see joy within your work, to create joy within themselves.
There you go. Yep.
I love the art class projects. I see so many Shantell Martin workshops.
Cool.
And teachers will send me pictures. So I love that.
Yes.
You have that same experience. And at some point, I want to kind of bring everything together and create some educational resources or something. Because if they're already doing it, and the same for your work, if there's already all these teachers all over the country teaching Jen Stark workshops, like, let's bring all that together, those resources, and create like a hub for, the educational, package or something that they can draw from.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I was thinking of like filming a YouTube video that's kind of me teaching a class, and that could be my contribution, so they can like go to the source to learn how to do it. But that would be cool to create a place where like there's different contemporary artists.
Because I've been in my studio, we've been pulling every time a teacher says, hey, we did a Shantell Martin workshop, we have a questionnaire that we say, hey, like, thanks for sending this, do you mind filling out this questionnaire?
Oh, cool.
And then it's kind of like, were there any resources that you use? Like, what worked, what didn't work? How long have you been teaching this? And
awesome. So
we're kind of collecting all of that data and information. But that would be really cool at some point to expand that and be like, okay, there's a Shantell category, there's a Jen category, there's other artists, and then we just combine that. Because, like I said, if they're already doing that, let's make that easier for people to find. And I've definitely had people stop me on the street and be like, hey, like, I studied you in 6th grade.
Wow.
And they're in their 20s. And I'm like, oh my God,
Cool.
And like, this is totally weird. But definitely there is something very rewarding and inspiring about younger people kind of recreating and learning about what you do in a way to find out about themselves and what they do.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Is there anything that you haven't spoken about today that you'd like to bring up and think about or talk about?
I guess not really. I guess like as an artist or doing anything in life, just I say go with your intuition, go with your gut. A lot of people try to kind of steer you on the wrong path because of their like just internal thought patterns and their like cynicism and criticism, and the way I got to where I am in life is because I'm pretty stubborn. So I'm like, I want to do this, I'm going to do it. And this feels good to me. And I'm not going to listen to you telling me that I am not going to be an artist or I can't do this, I can't do that. If I have a dream, I push forward, and if it's not like a direct step or jump, I just start planting little seeds. And when you plant those seeds, little things start growing, and then you'll kind of be on the path that you want, whether it's art or aerospace or whatever you want.
Saying that you have to push forward means that in a way, like the path isn't already there for you. What have been some hurdles that you faced over, your career as an artist?
Definitely. I mean, as a woman artist, there's definitely a pay gap with male artists and how I'm sure you've experienced that, how they kind of see us as like an investment, or I don't know. I think they don't see our, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't see us as valuable or something. It's just this weird, women artists definitely don't get paid as much as men, and that sucks. But yeah, I'm just pushing forward and hoping that will change someday.
I think also you're just not in the club really. Like typically a lot of people making those decisions are guys, and they'll typically will hire their friends or a friend of a friend, which happen to be guys. And, kind of women are on the peripheral of that. And sometimes it's intentional, but sometimes it isn't. It's just that they're going to someone that they know or someone that's been recommended to them.
Totally, yeah.
So it's interesting that. And, I think with other challenges, especially in the art world and working in the different industries that we have been, for example, branding and installation, etc. I think there's also the hurdles of sometimes like agreements. Someone wants to work on a really nice project, but then it's a really tough agreement that they want to own stuff for perpetuity, forever and ever, and can sub-license it and create derivatives and, all these things that are excessive, but not needed. And I think, especially within different spaces in the art industry and the creative industry, the artist never really has any power. And by default, the power goes to the big institution, the big company, the big client that has all the resources, that has all the power, that has all the money. But then they want to use your art, but then take everything else too. And that's definitely been a challenge for myself.
Yeah. Starting out, I didn't realize I would get so good at reading contracts. I feel like I'm a lawyer at this point. I'm like, take this out, take this out. I didn't realize how much an art career would kind of run as a business. So I wish I would have taken more business classes, but I feel like I just learned as I went. But that's definitely a hurdle. Legal stuff, just knowing how to run a simple business, and it's wild.
Yeah, administrative stuff, business stuff, legal stuff. And it is interesting because if you're in any other career, they're like, okay, you need, a lawyer, you need, a business plan, you need this, this, and this. And then you're an artist, they're like, okay, good luck.
Yeah.
And then you become successful and they're like, oh, you're a sellout. And you're like, wait, like, I thought you were egging me on, but now I'm doing something and then now that's not good because, like, why? So it's a very conflicted industry where, because so many people profit from the artist, it's in their interest to keep the artist kind of ignorant to all the fine prints of what is entailed to protect themselves and their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So more, I think it'd be great if there were more resources to combat that, to battle that, to educate that, but not just from the artist side, I think also from the other side. Because there is a responsibility. If you want to work on a project with an artist and your company is sending in that bad agreement or something, you should know. Like, I feel like everyone across the board should know about that and it should represent everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really care.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do agree that should change. Yeah.
Yeah, that should. Okay, so we've learned a lot about, kind of where you're coming from, school, Miami, LA, granddad drawing, sales, math-like work. You said at some point you see things as the Fibonacci. You said that.
Yeah.
I had a point in my brain just to go back to that and say, how do you see it? Because you said it in a way where you might see it in a way that perhaps we all don't.
I mean, everybody can see it in this way, where it's like, I've always been fascinated with the mathematical equations in nature, like pi and Fibonacci sequence and like golden ratio, and just like, that Nautilus drawing where it's like a bunch of boxes.
I've probably seen it.
It's like numbers multiplying by each other, like 1 times 1 equals 1, 1 times 2 equals 3. And it just like, I don't know the exact equation, but that equation is evident in like many things in nature. And I love thinking about that in like a zoomed out way, because those kinds of shapes are in the universe as well, and like galaxies and like nautilus shells, hurricanes. Yeah, just really being interested in that, and also like fractals, how that's kind of, fractals are so cool. They look like trees, and how other plants grow, and I feel like that's kind of the infinite universe inside of ourselves or something.
Have you ever considered going to a mathematics department and collaborating there?
Not really. I would love to, or like a physicist or something.
Yeah.
But I have had a mathematician email me a photo of my art, and they're like, this is exact equation, and you're just doing it visually. That's crazy.
That's
I'm
so
like,
fun.
Thanks. That's awesome.
That's so fun. See, stuff like that, like I would love to see that work and the equation next to it, you know, and like a whole series of things like that where, each of your works has the mathematical equation of the breakdown next to it. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Just for my own selfish kind of satisfaction. I really love the idea of, behind the visual of the work, there is the underlying information.
Yeah.
So when I was at MIT, I did a whole bunch of projects where I would measure the length of the line that I was using. And then I could look at a drawing and be like, okay, the combined amount of line in that drawing is like 1,000 feet long. Or the average coverage of a surface area is, 10%. So most of my work is 90% negative space.
Yeah.
And they're just these random facts that, are satisfying, but it just shows, like that mathematician said, you are tapping into an underlying equation of the earth and nature that is a part of you and a part of your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of similar to generative art, where you can like plug in those equations, like 90% negative, 10%, and just have all these like chaos equations make the art. I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, so lastly, just to finish off, you mentioned generative work, and I know that you did a generative project probably a couple of years ago now.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was 2021. I jumped into the NFT world when it was, especially at the height, it was a wild year. That year I created a bunch of NFTs. I had like the highest selling NFT for a female. Like I broke the top 10. So I was like the first woman to break into the, men's top 10, which was really crazy and exciting. And then later that year, I created a NFT project called Vortex, and that was on Art Blocks. So that was with a coder named Richard Lord, and I got introduced to him that year, and I loved his work, and luckily he loved my work enough to collab together. So that was 1,000 NFTs that they're all unique, but it's in an edition, and it was based off of my earlier paper sculptures. So it was kind of taking that IRL handmade 3-dimensional sculpture and bringing it into the world of code. So he had to look at all those photos of the older sculptures and kind of translate it, and we just spent months going back and forth and being like, more of this, less of this. here's these certain color swatches. And yeah, that project was really awesome.
Super fun. And do you have some of those yourself?
Yeah, I'm holding a few for sure.
Okay, beautiful. And lastly, just to totally let us know again, like, where can we find you? What's your Instagram, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, you can find me online, jenstark.com, or follow me on Instagram at jenstark. That's where you can see the most like up-to-date projects. And yeah, Cascade show opening in LA this fall. We'll keep you posted on that on my Insta, but that'll be a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate the time, and I've enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm excited for this to be out in the world soon. So thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cool. Thank you for listening to this episode of What's the Point, recorded at Spotify Studios in Los Angeles. Check out our website made by eat.studio. Grant Alexander Peters does our theme music, engineering, and editing. Research and pre-show preparation are done by Vern Molidor and Joyce Adams-So from the Shantell Martin studio team. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a nice 5-star review. Don't forget to check out the show description for more information on today's guest. And you can follow myself and the podcast on Instagram at Shantell_Martin. What's the point? Campfire crackled like a string of firecrackers. Popping like popcorn. A string of crackers. The 4th of July. Pop, pop, popping. One popped into your eye. Fill in the space, inviting this place, sending sparks into the air, sending sparks into the night, sending sparks into the sky, as they reach beyond my reach, as they reach beyond your reach, as they reach vastly beyond my reach, as they reach vastly beyond your reach. Strange and wonderfulness, strange and wonderful bliss. The exit is beyond this. Sparks sending into this sky, sparks sending into that sky, sparks sending into the sky. dragons sleeping in the sky, glistening in the sun, knowing that you are the one. As we smile with a smile on your face, as we welcome you, welcome the sight of your face, as we see the silent in this place, as we see the glisteningness of this place, sunlight shining on your face, as the fire crackles and it crackles through the wood and the heat and the hands, and we see that this is the land, circling around and around and around and around, circling around and around and around and around, flying around and around and around and around, being around and around and around and around. Let them go around and around and around. I see you go around and around and around and around. This is now around and around and around and around. That's my hand around and around and around and around. Seeing that around and around and around and around. Under that around and around and around and around. Fire this around and around and around and around. Fire that a square and around and around and around. Looking at that around and around and around and around. Firing that around and around and around and around. A square in that around and around and around and around.